I'm Cerulli.
Hi, I'm Seema.
Today, we're joined by Sarah Newman. Sarah founded the Climate Mental Health Network in 2021. Early in her career, she was the first outreach director at California Interfaith Power and Light. The bulk of her professional life has been in the media impact space, working for participant media, and later as a consultant, developing and managing campaigns for films such as Food Inc., The Cove, Blackfish and Contagion.
Thanks for joining us today.
It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we are so humbled to chat with you about a topic that is so omnipresent, yet very underrepresented, climate and mental health. Can you share a little bit about your new organization? What made you decide to bring people together in this particular topic, and why now? And what do you hope to accomplish?
Yeah, thanks. So I struggle with climate anxiety and climate grief. And I started talking with people and in the space to understand what is happening, what resources are available. And I found that there's a lot of really great work that's happening, both research and advocacy and also programs, but that there's so much more work that needs to be done. And so I decided that this is something I'm so passionate about, and work to figure out what can I bring in terms of my professional background and skill set to help with this issue. And a few things that the Climate Mental Health Network is really focused on is using media to destigmatize this issue and really help people understand that what they're experiencing is a normal reaction. And that's through media representation and storytelling and how climate stories are told. And then we're also focused on how to use technology to get people the tools and resources that they might need. And the last thing is to reach people both at a community level and in classrooms. There's on the education side, there's pretty much virtually no support for students in the classroom in terms of their emotional needs and mental well-being when they're learning about climate issues. And so we are working now to understand how to create content that would be able to support teachers so that they can then support students. So the organization really takes a very, I would say, public health approach, excuse me, of looking at this issue through a population-based approach and meeting people both, through media and then also on the flip side, a very individual level in the classroom and at a community level, but focused on using a peer approach rather than a professional therapy model, knowing that one, there's a lot of people who are working on the therapy model, and two, that the therapy model is not always accessible or appropriate for everyone. So our approach is less focused on ensuring that people have access to therapists and more, again, how peers can support each other, how teachers can be supporting students, and how people can get tools and resources through media and technology.
Sounds like so many important elements coming together. If I could ask Sarah, could you share a little bit about what eco-anxiety is? I know many of us feel it, but perhaps haven't put our finger on what that is, or even that term, and, maybe how you came to relate to that.
Yeah, no, it's such an important question because, tens of millions of people in the United States alone are struggling with a range of emotions in response to climate change and other environmental issues, but they don't even have necessarily the language to describe their experiences because these words, this vocabulary is just not accessible. It's not normalized yet. It's not mainstream. But in short, climate anxiety or eco anxiety is a range of climate emotions, I should say, are a range of emotional responses to both indirect climate experiences. So it's learning about climate change, reading about climate change, understanding what is happening, and then also direct experiences, whether it's someone's experienced an environmental disaster because of climate change, such as a wildfire or a hurricane. And the most important thing is that all of the emotions that people experience because of climate change, whether direct or indirect experiences, are valid and normal. And so people should understand that if they're feeling anxiety or they're feeling sadness or they're feeling grief or helplessness, all of these are very normal emotions to have. And it's, the opportunity is for people to understand that their reactions are normal, and then what can they be doing in terms of how to use these emotions in terms of, taking action to protect the environment and self-care and so forth.
I love what you just said right there, that these feelings are normal, right? That they're gonna happen, but what can we do about it? And that's exactly what it sounds like your network is trying to accomplish. So can you tell us a little bit more around how storytelling affects people's mental health and the impacts of how or if people take action can be shared through the media?
Yeah, so there's a lot of challenges in terms of how climate stories are told, particularly in the media, and how this both impacts people's mental health and how it affects whether or not people take action. So when stories are told that are apocalyptic, doomsday stories, this often will be overwhelming to people at a chemical level in one's brain. And it leads people to feeling despair, depression, helplessness, hopelessness. And that does not encourage people to take action. That often leaves people in the sense of, what can I do? I'm on the Titanic. I might as well just enjoy the party, or this is so much bigger than me. So what's my responsibility? This is up to the government or corporations. And another challenge with climate storytelling often is when the stories are told with a hierarchical hero model that often tends to be a white man. And again, this is very disempowering because the solution to the climate crisis is not a single hero. It's all of us. We are all in this together, and we all have to work together, and we all have to take action together. And so when the stories are told that are representative of people's experiences and have a more collective approach, that's also more inspiring and encouraging to people. And then in terms of what taking action looks like, again, when it's a superhero model, this is not representative of most people's experiences, and it's not what we need. Again, not everyone needs to be doing things that are in a superhero model. Like, everyone is a superhero, but it's just not necessarily it's not necessarily acknowledged by the media. So if you're doing something that is in your community, planting community garden or planting trees or working on increasing mass transit access in your community, or working on a campaign that's on the local funding for renewable energy. All of those things are perhaps not as visually exciting to the media or storytelling, but they're just as important. And it really is important because people need to see themselves in the stories that are told. They need to have a sense of hope. They need to understand that they have a sense of agency, and they need to be able to take action in ways that are meaningful to them, that is in their sphere of influence using their skills. So there's really a need for like I said, for the stories to not be as apocalyptic and to be more inclusive in their storytelling and more realistic.
Wow, there's just so much that you said that that I want to reflect upon, but I have to say one of my favorite things that you just shared was that everyone is a superhero. And, I really appreciate hearing how everyone can be a climate superhero. I think that is just so powerful. I'd also love to understand how you've seen mental health come up in climate discussions. Is this being acknowledged, and what can listeners do? And, I know you shared a little bit, along the way, but love to just get a concentrated focus on that as well.
Yeah. I mean, first, just to go back to the conversation about taking action, when people take action, it gives them a sense of agency. It gives them a sense of understanding their power, that everyone has power. They have the ability to address the climate crisis, to shift systems that are creating this crisis. So taking action is really important. But again, using, your skills, your sphere of influence, and what you're most comfortable doing. But at the same time, personal self-care is a huge part of this. And to understand that this is not up to one person, this is all of us together. And self-care is just as important, and to prevent burnout. So things that are important for self-care include time for reflection, whether it's meditation or just quiet time, journaling, connecting with other people, talking about your emotions, and if possible, spending time in nature, things like that.
I really appreciate that, because we talk about self-care a lot, and it's like this new buzzword because of the pandemic, and how do we be a little bit more introspective? And I really do appreciate all the examples you just offered for us to consider as things we could do for self-care, and that aren't extravagant or expensive, right? And then there's things you could do at home. So I really do appreciate that. I wonder if you can give advice to the people in the field who are doing the work around climate and health, who are maybe doing some advocacy, who are maybe doing some community organizing, who also feel the mental health impacts and the weight of the world sometimes of climate change. What can they do to help themselves?
Yeah, I mean, it is really challenging, and self-care really is a huge part of it. To know that to stay in this in the long term, it's so important to give yourself those breaks to, the personal care of, meditation, time in nature, time away from the screen, media diets, just limiting news consumption, and really finding joy in your life. Like, what brings you joy? What are those things? Anything, like sitting in the sun with a cup of tea, or reading a book, or being in nature, whatever it is, to really look for those things in life that are joyful to you, the positive things that still exist in the world. There is so much beauty that is still in the world. Like, we have all of the climate scenarios and predictions and realities, and it is awful, but at the same time, the world is filled with so much beauty. And to connect with that beauty, and to know that each person's work is so vital, and we need each person to continue to be part of this. And if we let it overtake our lives, that we get to the point of burnout, then that's one less person who's working on this climate crisis. And I think the last thing is to really find support, and to understand that talking about your feelings about this is very normal and very important. And not everyone is necessarily the right person to talk to, but to find those people that you trust, that you can have these conversations about your climate grief, your climate stress and anxiety, is critical. And those support networks are really important to not only validate one's experiences, but to understand, to be able to share with other people who are also going through this, And that just helps to strengthen each person's work in this space.
Thank you. Thank you for those tangible things. And I have to say, the one about find joy in your own life resonates with me, hits home. Just this morning, I asked both my little kiddos, what is one thing they're going to do to make today great? And they are my source of joy. So I would love to hear from you, Sarah and Seema. What are your sources of joy?
I love that with your kids. That's amazing. I mean, for me, there's so much, and in general, it does not come from scrolling on my phone. I will start with that, even though, of course, I, like most people, scrolling on my phone too often. But for me, I'm very fortunate that I have access to wood, a forest right behind where I live, and so I hike there every single day. And my family, my friends, my dog, these things that are seemingly just a part of the routine of my daily life. And these are the things that really bring me joy. And I think the last thing that, I mean, there's so many things. It's gratitude for the amazing food that I am able to eat every day, that I have access to so many resources in my life, and also just doing this work. It's just so important to me, and it really is such a motivating factor for me in terms of my way of working on the climate crisis, and just all of the people that I'm able to interact with every single day. Each person I have the most incredible conversations with, and I learn so much from them, and they really inspire me to continue to do this work.
Oh, thank you for sharing, both of you, what brings you joy. You know, for me, I think it is a combination of a lot of those things that come together. You know, I reflect upon my day yesterday, and the most joyful moment was going outside and spending time with my kids in nature, doing a little bit of gardening. And, you know, I also just have a lot of gratitude and try to take those moments of gratitude to be thankful for so many of the many things that you shared as well. And, you know, I really want to thank you so much for creating space, and for others who are working on eco-anxiety and climate mental health, because, you know, I know we feel it. I know others feel it. And I appreciate some of the great suggestions, some of the media diets, some of that reflective time, and really just that thoughtfulness of hope. You know, I just received a copy of Jane Goodall put out a new book called Hope, and just reading the first few sentences of how even through all of the challenges, there are still so many reasons to be hopeful and grateful. And Sarah, you know, we're just so grateful to have you have your time to share with us. And we're also so grateful for our listeners and our community that continue to support us. We hope that you'll follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, as well as our YouTube channel. And we really look forward to continuing conversations like the one we had today. So thank you so much.
Sarah, thank you so much. And you know, we hope to have even more conversations just like the one we had with you, Sarah, with others that offer inspiration to our work and hopefully to yours. And Seema,
thank you.
Yes, until next time, let's all make some noise for climate.